Welcome back. This is Crossroads. Israel's intelligence agency is being praised for playing a key role in breaking up an Iranian plot to assassinate opposition activists in Denmark, France, and the Netherlands.
Yeah, for Israel to have this role is a pretty significant. I24NEWS defense correspondent Daniel Tzemach has the story.
The nations on foreign soil plots to commit terror. The European Union is slapping sanctions on Iran for planning and perpetrating attacks across Europe, from France to Denmark and the Netherlands, to name a few.
I think that's an important signal. It's a way of defining a resolute foreign policy that I really do appreciate.
Israel was quick to praise the EU decision, taking to Twitter, saying, "This is an important first step by the EU combating Iranian aggression." Iran also had a response delivered by Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, where he said that accusing Iran won't absolve Europe of responsibility for harboring terrorists. A recent report published by the New York Times cites a Middle Eastern intelligence official saying that Israel's spy agency Mossad tipped off European countries of Iranian's terror motives.
From time to time, you also get information about things that don't have direct connection to Israel, but in the intelligence world, like in any other arena, things can be traded off, you know, and once Israel has an information about incoming terror action by Iran against opposition leaders in Holland or in France, there is an Israeli interest to share this knowledge with the local authorities.
Back in July, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lauded his nation's efforts in thwarting Iranian terror abroad, which was, at that time, a planned bombing of an Iranian opposition rally in Paris.
Fortunately, the plot was exposed. The cell's Iranian members were arrested in France, Belgium, and Germany.
The European Union is set to freeze Iran-destined funds and assets on Wednesday, but will remain committed to upholding the Iran nuclear agreement of 2015. That is, so long as Iran is still willing. Daniel Tzemach, I24NEWS.
To discuss, let's bring in Asaf Romirovsky, a fellow at the Middle East Forum. And Asaf, do you see a paradox here? On one hand, the European Union is sanctioning Iran's military intelligence service, and on the other hand, the European Union still supports the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal.
Well, I think that they are trying to make a distinction, or at least according to the European narrative, between kind of state activity and terrorism. I mean, Europe is a different scenario altogether. You are seeing some significant improvement vis-a-vis the cracking down on agents of Hezbollah, other kind of Islamist money, especially coming out of Iran, that they've been freezing assets. And so I think that in general, Europe wants to play a role within the, you know, what it committed to vis-a-vis the Iran deal. But on the other hand, all these recent events that you're seeing here as a kind of a chain reaction are definitely influencing the structure and the stability of Europe at large. And so I think that's definitely a great concern to Europeans in general, given the amount of refugees, the amount of migrants that are coming in with that extremist ideology into European borders.
And Asaf, what does it say about Israeli intelligence and their abilities to track Iran, even when it comes to matters that don't necessarily involve Israel?
Well, Israeli intel has been great. I mean, I think that the sense that where Israeli intelligence has been proven to be very strategic and very significant. Now, what's unique about it, of course, as mentioned, by your reporter, is of course that when Israel does have intelligence that impacts its allies, it does share information, and I think that that's also quite telling about the fact that there is a larger concern here to the stability of Western values in general, where Israel can facilitate intelligence and threats that are impacting their allies and not directly what's currently happening in the region itself. It goes both ways, with the hope of establishing trust and hope of establishing alliances going forward within the EU in general and within individual European leaderships.
So, Asaf, how do you explain that despite this intelligence that thwarted several attacks, as we now know, Israel is not gaining any political points for what it does? The only country that stands firmly with Israel's stance on Iran is the United States.
Well, for the European, as I said, as I was implying to before, it's very challenging. The fact is that they have been very much supportive of the Iran deal. On the other hand, these elements of terrorism that are impacting European society at large, they're trying to make that distinction between seeing Iran and the Islamic Republic as a stable, constructive state actor versus the element of terrorism. Indeed, Israel does not get any passes when it comes to the European narrative. Much of the boycotts that are coming towards Israel are coming out of European agents. Much of their monies that fund many of these NGOs under the auspices of human rights are coming out of the EU itself and other European entities. So when it comes to Israel itself, the mindset is very much anti-Israel. Again, part of the hope that you're seeing coming out now when it comes to issues of thwarting terrorist activity, where Israel can help without a direct link to making the connection to itself, but showing that we care about the values there. That's where the Israeli government is hoping to get some traction, but it doesn't change the mindset in European society as the growth of anti-Semitism at large, something we're seeing even in Germany. You're seeing it for sure within the UK as a result of Corbyn and Corbyn's followers, and you're seeing it in Paris and Belgium and other places, that this is becoming an ongoing serious threat where Jews in Europe are not feeling safe.
Right. Asif Romarowski, a fellow at the Middle East Forum. Asif, thank you.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo made a surprise stop in Iraq on the second day of his Middle East tour. He met with political leaders to reassure them about the U.S. planned military withdrawal from Syria.
For more, let's bring in our senior diplomatic correspondent, Nina Larson. And Nina, was it simply a damage control to try to reassure the Kurds, both in northwest Iraq and also the Kurds in northeastern Syria?
Well, certainly there was a stop in Erbil, and that was very, very important. He met with Iraqi Kurdistan's leaders there. But I think, David, this was more about meeting with the mainstream Iraqi leadership. He met with the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, the President. And we have to remember how important Iraq is in the Iran equation. It was all about security. To put this into context, the U.S. consulate in Basra in southern Iraq, close to the Iranian border, was ordered closed by Pompeo at the end of September. It remains closed. He accused Iran of targeting it with missiles. And I don't want to blow this out of proportion because this wasn't sort of heavy hardware, but he certainly regarded that consulate in Basra as a target of Iran and symbolically perhaps ordered it evacuated and closed. So also, Iraq is one of the few remaining lifelines financially for Iran. So those discussions would have also taken place earlier today.
Nina, any other priorities on Pompeo's trip agenda?
Very much so. This is very much the anti-Iran tour. But possibly tomorrow. I can't confirm because I don't have the schedule yet officially. But he's going to be giving a speech in Cairo over the coming days, possibly as soon as tomorrow. And the location is no coincidence, Tal and David. That was the scene when 10 years ago now, I know it doesn't seem 10 years ago, but that's where Barack Obama gave his famous speech to the Middle East in 2009. He gave that at Cairo University, and the theme of the speech was meant to be a new beginning. And of course, at that time, he was starting his own outreach to Iran, which culminated in that 2015 Iran deal. So whatever speech Pompeo gives, we don't know exactly where in Cairo this is going to be or who the audience is going to be. It will be very much a rebuttal of that original Obama vision of the U.S. in the Middle East.
And Nina, of course, Egypt is also crucial, perhaps, in the Israeli-Palestinian peace talks, if they ever develop, particularly in terms of what happens with Gaza. But it seems like Secretary of State Pompeo really hasn't been part of the Trump administration sort of vanguard in putting together the talks for that potential issue.
That's correct, David. The front men for all of this have, of course, been Jason Greenblatt and Jared Kushner at the White House. This is very White House driven. But we might get some hints from Mike Pompeo. He might, for example, be calling upon the region as a whole to support whatever peace plan this is going to be. And it's quite a strange location, though. President Sisi of Egypt under fire for human rights issues all the time at the moment. So perhaps not the best location, but I think we might have a better idea in the coming days what that vision might be.
Nina Larson, our senior diplomatic correspondent, reporting from Washington. Nina, thank you.
Kurdish fighters in Syria say they captured an American teenager who was fighting for ISIS. The YPG Special Forces rounded up the 16-year-old boy along with 7 others. The Kurds say the group were planning an attack on civilians.
The United States has been trying to figure out for months what to do about suspected terrorists in Kurdish custody. There are over 700 of them across the world. If the United States withdraws forces from Syria, the Kurds say that they may need to release the prisoners in order to divert resources to protect themselves from Turkey.
In Israel, police are trying to narrow down who is responsible for a stone-throwing attack that killed a Palestinian woman in October.
Israeli police raided an Orthodox high school in the West Bank on Wednesday, and the Israeli police have now summoned over 80 students for questioning. 5 of the Jewish students have been arrested. The 47-year-old Palestinian woman was reportedly killed when a group of Jewish settlers began throwing rocks at her, and one of the rocks hit her in the head.
Meanwhile, the already tense relations between Palestinian faction groups Fatah and Hamas are deteriorating.
And there is fear that the conflict between the 2 Palestinian groups could bring more violence to Gaza. I24NEWS defense correspondent Jonathan Regev has that story.
It's the wheel that never stops spinning. Relations between the Palestinian groups Fatah and Hamas, which were somewhat quiet in the past few weeks, are again escalating. And as always, violence may also be directed somewhere else.
This is an opportunity for very extremist fringe factions to perpetrate all kinds of actions against the PLO and the Hamas, but also against Israel, making profit of the chaos that will be reigning probably in this region.
More than anything, the 2 factions are divided on the status of the Gaza Strip, which has been under Hamas rule since the bloody coup in 2007. The Palestinian Authority wants to take back full control of the Strip, something Hamas strongly objects to. They feel they have the upper hand in this fight. In their eyes, they even defeated Israel.
No other country in the world succeed to do is to make its enemies to feed it and give it drinks and everything. So this is why the state of Gaza is existing, and the PLO actually are very sad about this.
Israel has enjoyed relative calm on the Gaza border for the past few weeks thanks to the agreements reached by Egypt, including some kind of reconciliation between the 2 Palestinian factions. Does this mean Israel wants to see Fatah and Hamas getting even closer? Not necessarily.
This is why they don't have a state until this very day. This is why they still keep arguing what to do with Israel. And between the Fatah and Hamas, Israel survives. If they were united, it would have been a very big problem for the state of Israel.
While that might be true, Israel is worried by the events of the last few days, including the explosive device flown with a toy plane from Gaza and the rocket that was fired towards Israel, the first one in many weeks. Just another reminder that any internal Palestinian issue has direct implications on Israel. Jonathan Regev, I24NEWS.
I very much agree with what Dr. Mordechai Kedar had to say in this piece. He said that, as long as the Palestinian factions do not start speaking in one voice, Israel cannot be forced into making any concessions.
Absolutely. I mean, Israel, unless they can somehow bifurcate it and make separate concessions to the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and to Hamas in Gaza, but that gets really complicated.
All right, still ahead here on Crossroads, that top Justice Department leader could be stepping down. Questions are swirling on what this could mean for the Russian meddling investigation.
Plus, we will take you to the heart of Texas to meet a rebellious Jewish country music star, Pinky Friedman. Michael Schur has the interview ahead on I24NEWS.